I found out on Instagram, not from my family. Sophia's engagement party at Bella Luna. Champagne, sparklers, everyone there, except me. I called my mother. She didn't hesitate. You've always been the jealous one, Olivia. That sentence cut cleaner than any knife. I exhaled. Then you won't attend my wedding. My name is Olivia, 29, designer in Chicago. I grew up clapping from doorways, not at the table. The spare chair at school plays was mine. Tonight, I choose who gets a seat. Years from now, under garden lights, I won't tremble. I'll have proof, peace, and a pen to write names. If you've felt erased, tell me where you're watching from. Have you ever been the outsider in your own family? Like and subscribe if you need this story too. They erased me. I rewrote the invitation. I grew up in the suburbs of Boston. A neat lawn, maple trees, white fences, like every family's postcard. Inside, it was a different story. Sophia, my sister 3 years older. The golden child. The prodigy. The one who could do no wrong. My mother, Barbara, adored her. My father, Thomas, praised her every breath. And me? I was the shadow in the room. I can pinpoint the day it all clicked. My 10th birthday. A cake, 3 friends, candles lit. The phone rang. Sophia had won her piano competition. Within minutes, my celebration vanished. Dad popped champagne for her. Mom called relatives for her. My friends picked at melting frosting. My candles sagged in wax. And I sat there invisible. It became the pattern. Vacations shaped around her interests. Beach trips, though I burned in the sun. Museum tours, though I begged for roller coasters. My milestones disappeared in her spotlight. When I won a scholarship, they skipped the ceremony. Sophia had choir that night. When I scored in soccer, the parent seats stayed empty. I told myself it didn't matter. But the hollow in my chest said otherwise. The only person who truly noticed was my grandmother, Eleanor. She whispered strength into me. Little notes in my backpack. You shine so bright, little star. She saw me when no one else did. Sophia wasn't cruel, not exactly. She simply wore her crown, unchallenged. Why question the pedestal when it was built for you? Sometimes I saw her discomfort. A flicker in her eyes when our parents canceled my plans. But the flicker faded. She learned to smile, as if nothing was wrong. And me? Every time I spoke up, I was labeled. Jealous. Envious. Never happy for your sister. So I stopped speaking. I poured it into sketchbooks. Canvas and charcoal became my witnesses. While Sophia sang, I painted. While she collected trophies, I built a world of color. It was the only place I wasn't second best. The day I got my acceptance letter changed everything. The Art Institute of Chicago. A partial scholarship. A door wide open. I had applied in secret, using Grandma Eleanor's address, because I knew my parents wouldn't approve. When I showed them, I got exactly what I expected. What about Northeastern? My father asked. You could live at home, save money. My mother added. Art isn't a career, it's a hobby. You'll regret this. But I had already decided. Chicago was 900 miles from Boston. 900 miles of oxygen. 900 miles of finally being myself. I packed my bags with trembling hands. Terror and exhilaration braided together. The night before I left, Sophia came to my room. She whispered, I think it's brave. I wish I'd gone farther too. For once, she was just my sister. Not the golden child. Not the rival. Just Sophia. Chicago greeted me with noise, chaos, freedom. My dorm room was tiny, but it was mine. No comparisons on the walls. No family history pressing down. But freedom had a price. Nights eating ramen from a thrift store kettle. Walking miles because bus fare was too much. Crying into sketchbooks, whispering, at least no one can take this from me. Art was everywhere. Graffiti humming on brick walls. Galleries tucked into side streets. People who spoke in colors, not in hierarchies. In my first semester, I met Zoe. Pink hair. Loud laugh. She said, you draw like you've got something to prove. But you don't need to prove anything here. Through her, I found my first chosen family. Zoe, Aiden, Maria. Late nights critiquing each other's work. Weekend trips to galleries. Support through heartbreaks and blocks. For the first time, I wasn't invisible. For the first time, I was seen. By sophomore year, I landed an internship. A boutique ad agency. At first, I felt like an imposter. Doodles on scraps of paper beside polished portfolios. But my boss, Laura, studied my work carefully. She said, Olivia, you see what others miss. Don't lose that. It was the first time an adult praised me, without comparing me to Sophia. No backhanded remarks. No dismissals. Just belief. By graduation, they offered me a job. My confidence grew project by project. When a billboard I designed went up downtown, I stood across the street, tears in my eyes. For once, people saw my work and didn't erase my name. Chicago had become home, not because of geography, but because here, I was enough. And yet, the shadow of Boston never fully disappeared. It was a Tuesday evening in April. I was boiling pasta, scrolling absent-mindedly through Instagram. Then I saw it. A photo. Bella Luna, the Italian restaurant we had visited for every milestone. The caption read, "Congrats to the future Mr. and Mrs. Taylor." There was Sophia, glowing in pale blue, her hand resting on Andrew's arm. Behind them, my parents, toasting with champagne. Around them, our cousins, aunts, uncles, even my high school friends. Everyone. Except me. My phone slipped onto the counter. Water boiled over, hissing against the burner. I couldn't breathe. I wasn't invited. Not even told. My hands trembled as I scrolled. 40 people. Custom cake. Perfect decorations. This wasn't last minute. This was planned. Before I could stop myself, I dialed my mother. She answered with surprise. "Olivia, is everything okay?" I saw the photos. My voice was a whisper. The engagement party, at Bella Luna. Silence. Then a sigh. "Oh, that. Mom, everyone was there. Everyone but me." Her tone sharpened. "Fine, you want the truth? We didn't think it was a good idea for you to come." The words stabbed. "What? Why?" "You've always been the jealous one, Olivia. Every time something good happens to your sister, you find a way to make it about you. We didn't want you making a scene." I froze. Her words weren't new, but they still cut like glass. A lifetime of dismissal, crystallized into one cruel accusation. When have I ever made a scene? I thought of Sophia's 21st birthday, when I had quietly slipped away to cry. Of her law school graduation, when I forced a smile through heartbreak. My mother had rewritten my silence as sabotage, my pain as jealousy, my invisibility as villainy. Tears stung, but my voice steadied. "Then you won't mind missing my wedding either." A sharp inhale on the line. "What wedding? You and Jack aren't even engaged." "Not yet," I said. "But when we are, you're not invited." And I hung up. The scorched pasta filled my kitchen with smoke. I sat on the floor, shaking, when Jack came home. He dropped his camera bag, rushed to me. I told him everything. The photos. The call. The words. His eyes darkened. "They have no idea who you really are. But I do. And I'm not letting them define you." That night, I blocked their numbers. I deleted the group chat. For the first time, I chose silence on my own terms. But cutting them off was only the beginning. Because families never let go without a fight. The silence didn't last. 3 days later, my phone lit up at 7 a.m. My mother's name. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to ignore it, but another part still longed for answers. I picked up. Her voice came broken, desperate. "Olivia, how could you get engaged and not tell us? We're your family." I laughed bitterly. "You're upset I didn't tell you? You threw an entire engagement party for Sophia and didn't even invite me." "That's different," she snapped. "We were protecting her day. You always find a way to make it about you." There it was again. The same blade, twisted deeper. "No, Mom," I said sharply. "I've spent my whole life making myself small, biting my tongue, smiling through tears. You never left room for me to make anything about me." She started crying harder. "This is revenge. Excluding us from your wedding? How could you do this to us?" "This isn't revenge," I said, my voice steady. "This is protection. Protection from a family that never once protected me." Later that day, my father called. His tone was stern, businesslike. "Olivia, enough is enough. Your mother is devastated. Don't ruin the family over feelings." "Feelings?" I shot back. "You call decades of neglect feelings? Tell me one time you put me first. Just one." Silence. He couldn't. That night, Sophia called. Anger in her voice. "What the hell, Liv?" "Mom's a wreck. Dad's furious. Do you enjoy tearing us apart?" My chest tightened. "No, Sophia." "But did you enjoy celebrating your engagement? While knowing I wasn't invited?" She faltered. I thought Mom had her reasons. I didn't want to question it. "And that's the problem," I said quietly. "You never questioned it. Because it always benefited you." For the first time, she was silent. No excuses. No defense. I pressed further. "You saw me disappear into the background for years. You saw my seat empty at games, recitals, birthdays. And you chose silence. That silence hurt almost as much as their words." Her breath caught. "I never saw it like that. But maybe you're right." Her voice trembled, but mine didn't. For once I held the power. When the call ended, I sat in the quiet. My hands shook, but not from fear. For the first time, my boundaries were real. And I wasn't stepping back. The little girl who begged to be seen was gone. In her place stood a woman who refused to vanish. Our wedding day dawned bright and clear. A garden pavilion draped in wildflowers, Jack waiting at the altar, eyes steady, heart open. No parents, no sister, no history weighing me down. Only the people who had chosen me. Zoe standing as maid of honor. Jack's family filling the front row with tears of joy. Friends who had become my true family cheering loudly. For once, the spotlight didn't feel dangerous. It felt deserved. As I walked down the aisle, bouquet trembling in my hands, I thought of the girl who once blew out melting candles alone. The teenager who painted in silence while her family praised someone else. The young woman who sat on a kitchen floor, phone in hand, hearing her own mother call her jealous. That girl had survived. And she had led me here. During the reception, Aunt Elaine arrived quietly. She pressed a wooden box into my hands. Inside were drawings, photos, letters, memories my grandmother Eleanor had saved. At the bottom, a note in her handwriting. Family is not control. Family is choice. Choose wisely, love deeply, never dim your light. Tears streamed down my face. Because I finally understood. I didn't need their approval to be whole. I didn't need their presence to validate my joy. I had already built a family. Through love, respect, and truth. The wounds of the past may never fully vanish. But they no longer define me. I get to choose what defines me now. And if you're listening, if you've ever been the outsider in your own family, know this. You are not alone. You are enough. And you can build the life they said you didn't deserve. Before saying goodbye, if this story touched your heart, please give it a like. And share it with someone who needs to hear this today. Don't forget to subscribe for more true family betrayal stories. That reminds us we are stronger than we think.
I didn't expect anything. Birthdays for me are quiet, usually on purpose. Micah makes pancakes. I answer a couple of texts, maybe buy myself flowers on the way home. No party, no candles, no big declarations. Just peace. So when the doorbell rang that morning and Micah came in holding a brown box, I blinked at it like it was out of place. It had no bow, no tag, no sparkle. Just cardboard, sealed tightly with industrial tape. He set it on the counter but didn't let go right away. I glanced at him. "It's from your parents," he said, reading the shipping label. I shrugged. Weird. They've never sent anything on time before, or at all. Micah didn't laugh. He just kept staring at the box. His fingers tapped once against the edge, then again slower. "Don't open it." It took a second for me to register what he said. "What, don't open it?" he repeated. "Something's wrong. Micah, it's probably just guilt socks, or passive-aggressive scented candles." He didn't smile. Instead, he turned the box slightly and pointed. "Look at the label. No handwriting, no return name. P.O. box in a city they've never lived in." I leaned closer. It was true. The label looked like it had been printed by a machine, nothing human about it. Even the font felt cold. I opened a drawer and grabbed scissors just in case. My hand hovered over the tape, but I didn't cut. Something about the way Micah stood arms crossed, eyes locked, made me pause. "What are you seeing that I'm not?" I asked. He didn't answer, just tapped again, this time slower near the corner seam. I followed his hand, and then I saw it. It was small, almost nothing, but my entire body went still. The day before my phone rang while I was folding laundry, Mom lit up on the screen, and for a second I debated letting it go to voicemail. But I didn't. Habit wins over instinct more often than I like to admit. Her voice came through thick with syrup. "Oh, sweetheart," she cooed. "We sent you a little surprise. It should arrive right on time." Right on time. From a woman who once sent me a graduation card 3 months late with my sister's name accidentally written inside. I held the phone between my shoulder and cheek and kept folding. "That's thoughtful. Thanks." She giggled. My mother giggled. "It's nothing big," she said. "Just a token of our love." I froze then, not because of the words, but because she didn't follow them with a criticism. No mention of how sensitive I've always been. No reminder that I read too much into things. Just love, plain and unchallenged. And yet it wasn't. I knew better. After 3 decades of trained reactions and uneven holidays, I'd learned to spot the curve in her tone, the one she used when she wanted something. but this time I couldn't place what it was. Still, I said thank you. I hung up. I stared at the phone like it might reveal something I missed. Later that night, Micah asked what was wrong. I said nothing, because part of me still wanted to believe it, that maybe this birthday would be different, that maybe for once they were just being kind. No strings, no traps, just family. But as I stood in front of the box the next morning watching Micah's brow crease, I knew exactly what that sweetness had been. It was cover, and now it was sitting on my kitchen counter. Micah didn't move. His eyes stayed fixed on the seam where the tape folded over itself. I followed his gaze, half expecting to see something obvious writing damage, maybe even a tear, but it was cleaner than that. Too clean. There, he said quietly, tapping the corner with his index finger. You see it? I leaned in. At first, I thought it was just the tape slightly glossier than usual, but then I noticed the texture. The edge had that same laminated sheen, almost waxy, with just a hint of blue thread in the seam. A very specific kind of industrial tape. My stomach dipped. I'd seen that tape before. A year ago, when Micah and I dropped off a baking dish at Sierra's apartment, she'd been kneeling on the floor surrounded by boxes. She called it inventory. Half the apartment looked like a warehouse. Glossy white packaging with minimalist labels, faint lavender scent leaking out of half-open lids. She'd smiled like she owned the world. This supplier is strict, she had said when I tried to peek inside one of them. They track everything. If you open the wrong one, it messes up the chain. Back then, I hadn't understood what she meant. Now I did. This wasn't a reused box. It was new. Fresh. Sealed by the supplier Sierra swore no one else could touch, and now it was here on my counter with my name printed in perfect sans serif font. I looked at Micah. He didn't speak, but I could feel the tension between us tightening like a cord. Not angry, not scared. Just ready. I reached for the box again, fingertips grazing the edge. It didn't feel like cardboard anymore. It felt like evidence, like a question I didn't want to answer. Micah stayed quiet, letting me decide. My hand dropped. We both stepped back. At the same time. And then my phone lit up again. Her name. Just as soft. Just as sweet. I answered the call but didn't hold the phone to my ear. Instead, I hit speaker and set it on the counter between us and the box. Sweetheart. My mother said, her voice high and lilting. Did it arrive? Micah's jaw flexed. I could feel his gaze but didn't meet it. Yeah, I said. It came. I didn't touch the box, didn't move. My hand was steady only because I'd gone completely numb. Oh, good. She sighed like she'd just exhaled 3 decades of motherly tenderness. Did you open it? I glanced at Micah, who didn't blink. Yeah, I said. I opened it. Pause. It's beautiful. Thank you. I watched the lie hover in the room for a second, then settle between us like fog. Oh, sweetheart, she said, and I wanted to scream. We just wanted to remind you how much we love you. You're our girl. Don't ever forget that. My stomach dropped. That line didn't belong to her. Not once in my life, not when I graduated, not when I got married, not when I lost a pregnancy alone on her couch, had she called me our girl. And now it came out like a Hallmark script she'd rehearsed in the mirror. Micah moved slightly, just enough to shift his weight. Well, she went on all sing-song. We thought you deserved something nice. You've always been so strong. She hung up without waiting for a reply. I didn't move. Micah didn't either. The box sat between us like it had ears. I hate how nice she was, I finally said. I know, Micah said softly. She only calls me sweetheart when she's about to lie. I know. We stood there for a long time, not looking at the box, not touching it. It didn't feel like a gift anymore. It felt like it was waiting for us to misstep. And that's when the memories started pulling at the edge of me, dragging me back to the version of love I was always told to be grateful for. I was 8 the first time I took the fall for something Sierra did. A dark green ceramic vase had shattered in the hallway. It was ugly, probably worthless, but my mother treated it like a family heirloom. I heard the crash from the living room and walked toward the sound on instinct. Sierra was already standing over the mess lower lip, trembling tears pooling like she could summon them on command. When Mom appeared, Sierra didn't even flinch. She just pointed at me. Rihanna did it. No warm-up, no eye contact. Just betrayal, clean and cold. I hadn't touched the vase. I hadn't even walked past it. But I said nothing. I was older. She was crying. I knew how this movie ended. Mom looked at me like I was a cracked mirror she didn't want to fix. "You should have been watching her," she said. Then she sent me to my room. Sierra got a popsicle. That pattern never changed. When Sierra borrowed my favorite sweater in middle school, the one Grandma gave me, wore it to school and got paint on it, she told our mom Rihanna didn't say it was important. Mom just nodded. You know she's still learning boundaries. I was 12. Sierra was 9. The sweater was ruined. Sierra got ice cream. Years later, when I brought it up at Thanksgiving half as a joke, Sierra rolled her eyes. "You're still hung up on that." Then she laughed and our mother said, "It wasn't that big a deal." That night, Sierra posted a photo of the family dinner with the caption "Grateful for forgiveness." She never once said sorry, even when she maxed out a credit card I let her use during her bath bomb startup phase. She cried, said she was drowning, said I didn't understand what pressure felt like, and every time I stayed quiet, I was told I was strong, mature, capable. The one who kept things from falling apart, the emotional garbage disposal of the family. I used to believe that made me necessary, but watching Micah look at that box like it might explode, I realized something else. They never protected me because they trusted me. They used me because I never cried. It didn't take long. 30 minutes after I hung up on my mother, there was a knock at the door. Not the casual kind, not the kind that waits. 3 even hits firm and practiced. Micah was already moving before I could speak. He didn't ask if I was okay. He didn't need to. When I opened the door, 2 officers stood there in uniform. 1 male, 1 female. Polite but unreadable. "Are you Rihanna Hale?" the man asked. I nodded. "We've received a report regarding a suspicious package delivered to this address. May we come in?" Micah stepped behind me. I opened the door wider. The box was still sitting on the counter. Same angle, same crease in the tape. It hadn't moved, and somehow that made it worse. I pointed. "That's the one." They approached it carefully, gloves already on. The male officer glanced at the label, then looked back at me. "This was addressed to you." "Yes." "Have you opened it?" "No." He nodded. "Would you mind if we did?" I shook my head. Micah stood behind me, arms crossed, jaw tight. They used a box cutter precise and slow. The sound of the tape peeling back made my spine tense. Inside bubble wrapped some small decorative figurines, marble or glass, I couldn't tell. A folded invoice, some kind of certificate, and a QR code stamped on the bottom of one piece. The female officer scanned it with her phone. She and her partner exchanged a glance I didn't understand. "Do you know what these are?" he asked. "No. I mean, they look like art." "Do you know where they came from?" "My parents sent it to me, for my birthday." "Do you have any proof of that?" I picked up my phone, opened voice memos, and hit play. My mother's voice filled the room, syrupy fake, unmistakable. "Did you get our little gift? We just wanted to show you how much we love you. You're our girl." I stopped the audio. The officer nodded slowly. "We're going to take this with us. You're not being charged at this time, but this shipment matches materials in an active investigation." Micah followed them to the door, but I didn't move. I just stared at the empty counter. They called that night. I didn't recognize the number, but I didn't need to. I answered anyway because I wanted to hear how they'd explain it. My mother's voice was different this time. No sweetness, no performance, just sharp and tight. "How could you?" she snapped. I didn't answer. "You told the police it was Sierra's. I told them who sent the package. I said you did. You know what this means for her?" "Yes," I said. "You could have kept your mouth shut. You could have said it was a mistake." I closed my eyes. "You called me. You checked that it arrived, and then you tipped them off to what was inside. You made the choice." There was silence. Then my father's voice came through low and measured like he was trying to sound reasonable. "We thought they'd just seize the items and move on. We didn't think it would trace back this far." But you thought it might trace to me, I said. You're stronger, he said simply. You've always been stronger. You used my name, my house. And now what Sierra gets to cry, and you get to pretend it was all a misunderstanding. She's not built for this, my mother cut in. She has 2 kids, a family. You don't. And there it was. They picked me because I was expendable. No one else relying on me. No children to be traumatized. No husband they respected enough to consider. Just the older daughter who never needed anything. The one who always got back up. You've always bounced back, my father added, as if that were a compliment. I didn't speak. I didn't argue. I ended the call. Micah returned from the kitchen with 2 mugs of tea and didn't ask what happened. He just set mine in front of me and sat across the table. The counter behind him was clear, but the space where the box had been still felt like a wound. They really thought I'd open it. The detective called 3 days later. I was halfway through a bowl of cereal when the screen lit up. He sounded tired, not rude, just methodical. He said they'd uncovered several documents connected to an art resale account supplier registration's international invoices filed under my name, business license applications, payment links, shipping trails. Have you ever registered a business called Hale Studio Designs? He asked. No. Have you ever used the email hale.designs73@outlookmail.com? I actually laughed. No. I don't even use numbers in my email. He didn't laugh back. We found a digital signature attached to multiple vendor contracts. It appears to be yours. He sent it over. It took 3 seconds to confirm what I already knew. The signature was mine, except it wasn't. The loops were wrong. The pressure was forced. Someone had tried to mimic the way I signed birthday cards. Is this your handwriting? No. He asked if anyone in my family had ever had access to my old paperwork taxes ID mail. I paused. Years ago, yes. Before I knew I had to protect it. He asked if I'd submit a signed affidavit confirming I never authorized any of it. I said yes. I wrote it that afternoon. Micah double-checked it before I sent it back. I even attached a scan of my actual signature, just in case anyone needed help spotting the difference. The detective thanked me for my cooperation. He didn't say Sierra's name again, didn't promise charges, didn't hint at an ending. Micah and I sat in silence for a while after I hung up. I hadn't touched my cereal. I looked around our kitchen, small, clean, ordinary, a space we'd built piece by piece, a life we'd tried to keep simple. The name on the lease, the utilities, the insurance, everything in my name. And now that name was a crime scene. Sierra pled out. Wire fraud, identity theft, import violations. Her lawyer negotiated it down to 2 years of probation and a fine that could have bought a new car. No jail time, no business license until her mid-40s, a slap on the wrist considering. My parents were charged 2 conspiracy aiding and abetting. They pled guilty. Community service public record and a tidy little fine. Nothing that touched their retirement, nothing that left a bruise. My name was mentioned 12 times in the court transcript, not once with an apology. I didn't go to the hearing. I read the papers. I saw the coverage. I looked at a courtroom photo of Sierra in a beige cardigan, eyes wide and wounded like she'd tripped into the whole thing by accident. My mother sat behind her, hand on her shoulder, like she was the one being punished for loving too much. Micah asked if I wanted to send a statement. I said no. I wanted my name out of it as fast as it had been dragged in. Then came the request, a message, from my father's email. They wanted to meet. Just the 2 of them. One conversation he wrote for clarity. Micah didn't say no. He just asked if I wanted him there. I didn't. I picked the place, some overpriced cafe near the courthouse. The kind of place where the coffee isn't great, but the tables are small enough to make people uncomfortable. I arrived 10 minutes late. They were already seated. My mother looked like she'd rehearsed her facial expression for a week straight. My father gave that hollow half-smile I knew too well. I didn't sit right away. I wanted to see how long it took them to pretend this was about closure. We didn't know, my mother said before I'd even sat down. I raised an eyebrow. She said it was just for shipping. My father added, like that explained anything. You didn't ask, I replied. You never do. They looked at each other as if coordinating which lie to offer next. She said you wouldn't mind, my mother continued. That it was temporary. She also said I'd open the box, I said. Turns out she says a lot of things. Silence stretched across the table like a net. We didn't think it would go this far, my father said. No, I said. You didn't think you'd get caught. That landed. My mother straightened like she was preparing for the closing argument. You've always been stronger, Rihanna. You don't have kids. You don't have anyone depending on you. We thought you'd be able to recover. There it was, the real reason. Polished, practiced, probably whispered between them for weeks. You offered me up, I said, because no one else depends on me, because my life was easier to sacrifice. That's not what we meant. It's exactly what you meant. I didn't wait for more. My coffee was still half full, but I left it on the table as I stood. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't look back. I walked out with the kind of clarity I used to think only came after someone said sorry. That night I blocked them. Every number, every email. I deleted the emergency contacts from every form they still lingered on. Driver's license, HR files, doctor's office, all of it. Gone. Not out of anger, out of necessity. The next morning, Micah brought me coffee while I sat at the kitchen table. He didn't ask anything. He just placed it in front of me. I wrapped my hands around the mug. I'm done, I said. The paper grocery bags dug into the creases of my fingers as I stepped through the front door. I'd just worked a 10-hour shift at the firm's skipped lunch and still made the stop for almond milk olive oil and those exact brand of crackers Mom insisted on. The hallway smelled like floor cleaner and fried onions. My shoes squeaked against the tile. No one looked up. I placed the bags on the counter, exhaling. My wrists ached. From behind me, Dad's voice cut the air. You get my message. I turned halfway. About what, he moved into the kitchen, arms crossed, mouth tight. Your mother and I have been talking. If you won't step up and contribute more, maybe you don't belong here at all. For a moment, I thought I misheard. Step up. You live on your own, have a good job, but this household is drowning. Your brother's still figuring things out. I'm retired. Your mom has her health issues. I've been paying the mortgage, I said, quiet. Utilities, groceries, almost everything. Tobias called from the living room, not even bothering to look away from the TV. She acts like she's doing us a favor or something. My hands clenched around the edge of the bag. Crackers shifted, nearly tore the bottom open. I glanced down at the receipt still folded in my pocket. $164.89. All for them. I'm not acting, I said. My voice didn't rise. I've actually been doing. Dad's jaw tensed. Don't get dramatic. Mom appeared at the doorway, arms crossed like a verdict. We just want everyone to do their part. I've done more than my part. Then why does it still feel like you're holding back? Something in my chest turned to stone. I let go of the bag. It slumped onto the counter with a quiet thud. I just got off work, I said. But fine. You want more, I'll give you something. They watched me like I might scream, might cry. I did neither. I walked to the door, pulled it open, and before stepping out, I said softly, Then this house no longer has a daughter named Narina. I was raised to believe that being dependable was the same as being loved. If they could count on me, I mattered. If I came through, I belonged. It started small. I was 16 the first time I covered a utility bill. Mom had accidentally overdrawn the account again. I used part of my paycheck from the grocery store to keep the lights on. She kissed my forehead and said, You're such a good girl. You'll always take care of us. That sentence became prophecy. By 25, I was covering the Wi-Fi, water, and most of the groceries without being asked. By 28, I was forwarding money for their car insurance, then quietly paying off Tobias's overdraft fees. He got a new phone every Christmas. I hadn't upgraded mine in 4 years. When Dad's prescriptions weren't covered one month, I drove across town on a lunch break to pick them up. No one reimbursed me. No one offered. Family supports each other, Mom would say, then send a list of errands. I never asked for much. I wasn't the type to need gifts or praise. I just wanted to be seen, to be acknowledged as more than the one holding it all up. But it wasn't until I started keeping track that I realized how far things had gone. One night, a week before tax season, I opened my laptop and created a spreadsheet. I listed every transaction from the past 8 months: utilities, groceries, car repairs, credit card minimums, co-signed loans, even Tobias's therapy bills, which I hadn't known I was still paying. Each line had a date, a purpose, and a total. The number at the bottom was $18,426.17. I stared at it for a long time, not because I expected them to pay it back, but because I needed to see it, needed to confront the truth in black and white. They didn't see me as a daughter. They saw me as coverage. I printed the sheet, taped it above my desk in my one-bedroom apartment, and didn't tell anyone. It wasn't for them. It was for me. A quiet reminder that I was not overreacting, that it wasn't just a few things here and there, that I was not wrong to feel drained. That night, I made myself tea and looked around the room. The place was quiet, a little too quiet, but I knew I had to get used to it, because silence, unlike obligation, doesn't demand repayment. The lease was short-term, the carpet was worn, and the walls were a shade of beige that no one could name, but the place was mine. I moved in with 2 suitcases, a coffee maker, and a bookshelf that took an hour to assemble by myself. No one offered to help, and for the first time, I didn't feel hurt by that. The absence felt like space. Space to breathe. Space to exist. The texts came every other day. Mom's were long and winding, laced with guilt. Dad's were abrupt. Call your mother. Have you checked the mail? Tobias only texted when something broke, usually followed by a Venmo request. I didn't block any of them. I just turned off notifications. Let the silence stretch between us like a new language I was learning, one where I didn't have to translate exhaustion into kindness. My bank account pinged less now. No transfers, no rushed deposits to cover overdrafts I didn't cause. I started tracking my own spending again. Small things like herbal tea, a new shower curtain, groceries that didn't include anyone else's preferences. At night, I made myself dinner. Real meals. Nothing frozen, nothing rushed. I played soft music while I cooked. I didn't check my phone. I didn't have to wonder what would be waiting on the screen. Some nights I'd lie in bed just listening to the hum of the ceiling fan. My body, for the first time in years, didn't feel like it was bracing for something. No one would knock. No one would barge in. No one needed anything. I started sleeping through the night. Full, uninterrupted hours. 8 hours turned into 9 on weekends. There was no applause, no audience. Just the quiet sound of a life being rebuilt one breath at a time. I kept the spreadsheet on my desk, but I didn't open it much. I didn't need to see the numbers anymore to remember the truth. The distance had done what confrontation couldn't. It gave me room to stop performing. One Friday morning, I checked the weather and decided to walk to work. The breeze felt honest. It didn't owe me anything, didn't demand gratitude or submission. And when my phone buzzed again, another message from home, I didn't flinch. I just slipped it back into my bag and kept walking. It had been 3 weeks since I walked away. 3 weeks of quiet dinners, 8-hour sleeps, and checking my own account balance without flinching. Then, on a Wednesday morning, just as I stepped into my office building, my phone buzzed with a message from Dad. Why didn't the card go through no greeting, no question mark? Just those 7 words, like I had missed a shift at a job I never applied for. I didn't reply. I didn't even stop walking. I placed my phone face down on my desk and poured coffee like it was any other morning. By noon, Tobias was calling. When I didn't answer, he tried again. And again. On the 4th attempt I picked up. I figured I owed myself the right to hear how far they'd stretch. You knew we needed that money, he snapped before I could say a word. I said nothing. You think you can just stop helping and nothing happens? You think you're better than us because you've got some little apartment and a spreadsheet? Still, I said nothing. He hung up with a frustrated scoff. Not even a goodbye. That night, I opened my laptop and logged into the bank's public property portal. I typed in the address of the house I grew up in. Pre-foreclosure. Final notice issued. My heart didn't drop. My hands didn't shake. I just stared at the screen, not surprised, just cold. I'd been sending $1, $300 a month for nearly a year. Sometimes more. I'd never seen the actual mortgage statement. They never offered to show it. I thought I was helping. I thought I was preventing collapse. But now I saw it clearly. The money didn't go to the bank. It went elsewhere. I closed the tab. I didn't need details. The truth was enough. They hadn't needed a daughter. They'd needed a system. And that system just broke. I poured myself a glass of water and sat on the floor beside my little table. No music, no noise. They would scramble now, blame me, guilt me, twist the silence into selfishness. But I wasn't part of the structure anymore. I wasn't the net catching their falls. I had simply stepped aside and watched gravity do its work. The phone lit up again, this time Mom's name. I let it ring untouched until it faded away. I hadn't planned to call. I'd rehearsed silence, worn it like armor. But something about seeing that final foreclosure notice pushed me into motion. Not out of rage, out of finality. I waited until Sunday afternoon. They were always home then, Dad watching the game, Mom folding laundry with the TV on Tobias, pretending to look for jobs. I dialed the house phone. It rang twice. Hello? Mom's voice came sweet, stretched thin. Narina. Put me on speaker, I said. A pause. Then the soft beep of the speakerphone. In the background, I heard the familiar creak of the kitchen chair, a soda can opening, the rustle of papers. I'm here, Dad said. Same, Tobias muttered. I inhaled once steady. Where did the money go? Silence. What Mom asked, as if she hadn't heard. I sent over $300 every month for nearly a year. I checked the mortgage. It's in foreclosure. So I'm asking, where did the money go? Mom cleared her throat. Your father had dental work and then the water heater broke. Ethan's car needed repairs. And the cost of groceries, it's been overwhelming. Tobias cut in. You act like we went on vacation. Stuff came up. We were going to sort it. Dad added. It's not like we meant to deceive you. Things just got ahead of us. I didn't yell. I didn't even sigh. You never showed me a bill. Never asked if I could afford it. Never offered repayment. You just assumed I would cover it. Quietly. Narina, Mom started. We're family. You shouldn't need a contract. I nodded to myself. That's the thing. I didn't have a contract. I didn't have my name on the deed. I didn't even have a place at the table unless I brought something to it. No one spoke. I've read the emails. I've heard the voicemails. You've called me cold, selfish, dramatic. But I'm none of those things. I was your daughter. You turned me into your donor. A long breath on the other end. Then, Dad's voice, low and brittle. You don't understand. Without you, we're losing everything. I looked out the window at the modest tree swaying in front of my apartment. No, I said quietly. You lost everything the moment you started seeing me as a balance sheet. I pressed end. Not out of hatred, not out of anger, just completion. The kind that doesn't need applause or permission. I placed the phone face down on the table and reached for the envelope I hadn't opened yet. The one with my name and their return address. The envelope was thinner than I expected. Inside was a final notice, words like delinquent default eviction proceedings printed in bold. My name was nowhere on the deed, but still the letter had found its way to me. Like they had wanted me to see it. Like they needed me to feel one last tremor of guilt. I folded it once, then again, and tore it in half. Not out of rage. There was no heat left, just a quiet understanding that this wasn't mine to carry. It never had been. I opened our old group chat. The thread stretched back years, photos of birthday cakes I paid for, receipts from grocery trips, passive-aggressive emojis, dry requests. I scrolled until my thumb hurt. Then I stopped. One line. I'm not your backup plan anymore. Goodbye. I sent it. I left the group, then I blocked them all. Mom, Dad, Tobias. The phone went still. Not silent, stillness is different. Silence waits. Stillness accepts. I closed the banking app I'd left open and opened another one just for me. I'd created it a few months back, unsure if I'd ever use it. It had no linked payees, no transfers out, just deposits. Small ones. Until today. I went to the corner boutique I always passed on the way to work, the kind of place I used to think was too indulgent. Inside, I tried on a pair of soft leather shoes. They fit. I paid in full. No discounts, no guilt. When I walked out, I didn't feel like someone escaping anything. I felt like someone returning to themselves. Later that evening, I made dinner just for one. I poured a glass of wine and lit a candle I'd been saving since last Christmas. The flame flickered steadily, as if it knew something final had settled. The spreadsheet still hung above my desk, but I no longer needed it to remind me. The boundary wasn't in the numbers, it was in the breath I now took without flinching. They would call it betrayal, abandonment, selfishness. Let them. I had given my time, my earnings, my energy until I was emptied. Now I had given one last thing, a clean goodbye, and the space it left behind was exactly the size of peace. As I curled up on the couch with the new shoes beside the door, I opened a new tab on my laptop, one I hadn't dared open in years, and started searching for flights. The dining table was small, but it held more than enough. A slow cooker of lentils, someone's famous spinach dip, slices of cornbread still warm in the foil. Laughter drifted in from the kitchen as Nora and Gerald argued over who made the best chili. My contribution sat modestly in the center lemon bars made from scratch. I hadn't hosted anything in years, not because I couldn't, but because it never occurred to me that people might show up without expecting anything more than a seat and a story. We sat cross-legged on the floor plates, balanced on newspaper napkins folded just enough to look thoughtful. It was warm. Not just the apartment, the feeling. Unforced. Simple. At one point, someone asked why I never talked about my family. It was casual, not prying. Just curiosity. I paused a beat, then smiled. Some stories are better closed, I said. No one pushed. They just nodded and kept eating. Later that night, after the dishes were rinsed and the laughter had faded into the quiet hum of my apartment, I poured myself a cup of chamomile tea and sat by the window. The rosemary in the box beside me was finally sprouting. The leaves were still small, but they smelled strong when crushed between my fingers. I had started planting things in spring, not just herbs habits. On Saturdays, I went to the farmer's market. On Wednesdays, I took a yoga class. Some mornings I walked before work without checking my phone, and in the quiet moments between everything I wrote lists, books I wanted to read, places I wanted to go. Maine was at the top. I didn't know anyone there. That was the point. It felt like a place where silence would be scenic, not loaded. The money I once wired to save someone else's home was now quietly building a path towards something entirely mine. A solo trip, a new coat, a better mattress. Things that didn't require justification. I used to think home meant shared blood, shared walls, shared obligations. Now I knew better. Home was where I could breathe. It was in the rosemary on my windowsill, in the text from Nora asking for my lemon bar recipe, in the quiet hum of a ceiling fan that didn't come with tension or expectation. It was in the stillness after people leave and nothing feels broken. That night, I folded a clean sheet of paper and wrote the words, packing list, Maine at the top.